a student from the or you could be trying to get a student out of the partnership. But anyway, so let's see how. There you go.
Thank you. That's on there.
Yeah.
So, hi everybody, my name is Steve Renshaw, I'm Professor of Medicine here and I'm Director of the MRC DTP, and I'm going to explain a little bit about the DTP for those of you who don't know about it. And I thought that what you would want to know from me is, how do I get a student? So just before I start, can I just see a show of hands, who has a student from the MRC DTP? Okay, yeah, you're not supposed to have two hands. So not very many, 4 or 5, and how many people have applied and didn't get a student? Yeah, lots more of you. And I think this is the problem that with these. You know, we have very, very few students and we have a lot of supervisors who want projects, so there's always going to be a lot of disappointed people. But I'll try and hopefully explain a bit of why we do it, how we do, and why you guys have not got students. I think it's important to say, before the MRC DTP, Sheffield had no MRC students, and we hadn't had any MRC students for a long time, and we were nowhere near crossing the threshold we were going to get any new MRC students. And that was also true of some of our partners, Liverpool and Leeds as well. So we're doing pretty well to be getting any students out of the MRC. And the MRC's view is that they're going to be pushing more and more through the DTPs and less through other routes. So we've already started to take through the I-case students, the industrial case students. Those are now being delivered through this DTP, and the National Productivity Investment Fund studentships are also coming through the DTP. And in future it's going to be more and more of the studentships that come through the DTP. So to have your foot in the door and to be one of the studentship programmes is a really important thing for this university. And the feedback we get from the MRC is that they like the way that we're doing this. So even though some of you may not like the way we're doing it, you know, the MRC support it, and that means we're likely to keep getting the money, which I think is one of the most important things. So with that background, I'm going to talk a bit about what the DTP is, what principles do we use to inform how we make the decisions about how to run it, how do we try and match the best students to the best projects. Now these are the MRC's words, and this is something they were really keen on all the way through this. How do you put the best student in the best lab? From you guys, how can you maximise your chances of success? And then just again a little bit about what our expectations are, expectations of the students, expectations of the supervisory teams, and what you might be able to expect out of the DTP. So what is the DTP? So the key word here is partnership. Now this is one of the things that's incorrect in the little blurb that I sent quickly on my phone one day when I was asked for a title. But it's not a doctoral training programme, it's a doctoral training partnership. And the MRC are very, very keen on this. And it's a partnership that includes the MRC. So it includes 4 universities, Liverpool, Sheffield, Leeds, Newcastle. But it also includes the MRC, it includes the student, the supervisor, and we have a number of associate and non-academic partners, which are a number of industry bodies largely who contribute to the broader DTP. So when thinking about the DTP, we think about all of these people, and I think particularly the MRC, they don't want to just give this money and do what you like with it. They want to be involved, they want to steer this, and they want it to fit the way that they want to deliver it. So the 4 institutions that make up our DTP, the 4 academic institutions, so it's half of the N8, it's the 4 institutions I mentioned earlier, research-intensive universities in the north of England. And when we put in the application, we focused on 3 research areas, and these emerged through me reading the ref cases for those 4 universities and seeing what was common and where there were overlaps and where there were synergies between the universities. And we have currently 88 students across 3 cohorts across those 4 universities. So this was an image that we made for the initial application, and it sums up the 3 broad areas that we have in the DTP. So we have a little bit of an area on genetic influences in health. So, you know, how do the genes and all epigenetic events that you're born with influence health over your lifespan? And then the second part is, you know, what does the influence of the environment cumulatively over many years have on the impact of disease and ageing? Within that, there's a thread of personalised medicine, so the best treatment for every patient, and this is something that's topical, but is also a research strength of a number of the institutions. And then tying all this together in the middle are the priority skills areas that the MRC highlighted at that time: whole organism physiology, imaging, quantitative skills and interdisciplinarity. And the MRC wants us, all the DTPs, to deliver this skills training to their students. So if you have projects that encompass training in this area, then they are much more likely to be successful than the ones that don't, or ones where the link to these is weak. So a number of principles that we have used to try and guide us in shaping the DTP. And the key thing is that the MRC wants us to provide training in these areas. So some of that comes by doing the PhD in a lab that has that kind of project, and some of it comes from specific training that we bolt on. They want us to enhance the quality of training and support for the students, and that's on top of what's happening at each institution locally. The key word that we've taken up is student-centred. This is the MRC, something that was in their guidance in the applications, that they want this to be focused around the students. And actually this is a really useful principle for us. So the first question that we ask when we're faced with any question is, what's the best thing for the student? And that means quite often it's not the best thing for the supervisor, and that's one of the reasons that these tensions arise. But if it's built around the students and it's their needs come first, and that's the best way to get the sort of training program the MRC wants. And the MRC are very keen for this cohort effect, that they want people to be lumped together and to train together and to have a cohort effect. And there'll be different views on the value of that. And that's one thing that's a bit of a challenge for us. Geographically, we're the biggest of all of the DTPs. We have, if we go from Liverpool to Newcastle, it's pretty difficult on a train early in the morning. So this cohort event is quite difficult for us to generate. So it's something we have, but it requires specific efforts. For example, people have to stay overnight when they go away for training days and things like that. So the main thing that we have to try and do is work out what are the best projects within the network, and how do we get the best students, and how do we put the two together. And the outcome of that really determines whether you get students in your lab or not. So we have an open call at the moment for projects, which I hope you've all seen, and the closing date for that is the 8th of October, so about a month's time. So you will submit those through the web form. We have simplified it a little bit this year because of feedback we've had. But we score all of these, so 2 academics from each institution score all of the applications, and these are then and they're scored blindly, so in the application we can't tell where they've come from, which institution, which person, gender, race, etc. All of that is blinded, and then we rank the projects and we advertise the top projects. Now, for the last 2 years, in response to feedback from other institutions, we've added a light touch local review here. So I'm very pleased to see that our institution has a priority right at the top in its list of priorities, that supporting matched studentships from RC UK programmes is a priority. That is not the case in other institutions, and in lots of other institutions there is a real tension between what the university wants to do with its PGR provision and what the MRC wants to do. So those institutions have insisted that we have a stage where they can influence the scientific priorities of what's going into this project, and that happens at the level of the project selection. So if we get 200 projects, there will be a local sift, and a large number of those will be sifted out as not being locally applicable to local strategy. This is something that I don't particularly like as a strategy, but it's something we have now as an approach. So that means some of your projects won't even make it through that first sift here. And then there's also this idea of suitable supervisory team. Now, I don't think many people have ever been kicked out of the pool because their team was felt to be unsuitable, but it is a possibility that if the PGR lead has somebody whose students are always in their office complaining this person is not a suitable supervisor, we don't want to be putting MRC students in that person's lab. That's what that stage is for. So that's how the projects get out to advert. And one of the reasons for not advertising everybody's projects is that if we advertise 200 projects, it's a massive amount of effort for everybody to be talking to students and having interactions with large numbers of students to find that they're not going to get a project. So we try and limit that by advertising only twice as many projects as we have students available. So on all of the forms where you submit the projects, it should say how we're going to score them, and this is how we score the projects. So there are 6 domains, or 5 domains for most of them, and there's a last one for where there's a partnership arrangement. So as you'd expect, it's how good the project is, the added value of the student to current programs, whether we're fitting with MRC priorities, whether these are aligned to strategic priorities. So this priority skills is the end of training, and the strategic priorities are slightly different, but they're all available on the MRC website. And the quality engagement of the supervisory team, and there are ways that you can enhance this in the application by kind of saying that you're happy to contribute to the training programme, for example. And then the second part of this is how to select the students. And in the first year, because of the short time scale, we allowed each institution to interview their students separately. And this very apparently gave us an inequality in the quality of students across the 4 institutions. There was one particular student who was interviewed at one site and felt to be completely unsuitable, didn't rank in their top 3 or 4 candidates, and then that student was offered a place at another institution. So in order to get the best students across the 4 institutions, we need a centralised process. So people apply to the DTP. They don't apply to the university, they apply to the DTP. We rank them and we appoint them. And I know that has some disadvantage for the supervisors, but it's the only way that we can make sure that we are evening out the quality across all 4 institutions. And of course the thing that also comes from that is if the best candidates all apply to one institution, then if they are the best candidates, and this is a student-centric process, they all have to go to that institution. Now, of course, in practice that doesn't really happen, but there are some inequalities in year to year, and there has been some grumbling from some places that haven't had their share. But we have very strong feedback from the MRC that the DTPs that do give people a share of the students are not considered to be doing this in the optimal way for the students themselves. So we have a centralised process. The students can apply for up to 3 projects, and we really encourage them to do that, because last year the top 10 students pretty much all applied for 1 or 2 projects, so we had lots and lots of people in 2nd and 3rd choice projects. So people really need to be encouraged to choose other projects. We make sure that they're eligible, and then we score their applications by ATEC academics, again completely blinded to who this person is and which institution they're going to across all 4 of the institutions. And after that we have a supervisor checkpoint, which is the chance for you guys to say, I would never have this person in my lab, no matter how good you think they are, I don't want them. Okay? There's also an opportunity to say, this person is the best person I've had. I've had 6 people come to me, this person is by far the best, and that's the person I want. Now those things we do take into consideration both at the shortlisting stage and at the interview stage. So it's important that process happens, and happens in a timely way. There isn't very long for it in our process. And then we interview centrally the top students and offer them a post. This is perhaps the most important thing to remember if you're feeding this back to students. There's a long form for them to apply for, because the universities all need different things. We have to collect a lot of information. But the things that we score on, there are 3 free text boxes that they enter, and that's all we score on. The academic track record, the motivation for undertaking a PhD, and the research experience. And we've had some people come back to us as supervisors and say, I had a really great student who didn't even get shortlisted. And when you look into it, the reason is they didn't put anything in their academic and track record to give us an idea of how good they are. So if they haven't got a degree already, they're still doing their undergraduate degree. If they've not got any marks, any projected scores, we can't make that judgment. So they need to put stuff in that shows that they're strong candidates. And that's really important. So we shortlist on that, then we interview, and then we make a decision based on interview and CV and references at that stage. So in this last round we had 136 projects submitted. We advertised 67 projects. We had 267 students applied, so the shortlisting was a big job. We interviewed 57 students, and that was a big job as well, and we've got 30 projects successfully awarded. So how can you maximise your chance of success in this process? So there's 2 things you need to get done. You need to get your project selected, and then you need to have the best student. So when you put your project in, you have to be really trying to tick all the boxes for getting the project through. Now, there's a bit of a random element for this. There's 8 people scoring it. Somebody might take against your project and score you down, and there's nothing we can do about that. But if you don't write very much in some of the boxes, or you don't make any effort to sell all of those aspects, then you may score low on one of those things, which might drag your score down. So try and tick all the boxes in the project selection. And then you've got to attract an excellent student. And if you have a really, really excellent student, then they should get through the process. And we have got some really fantastic students in the programme. So if you get approached by a student who's excellent, you need to help them so that they don't throw their opportunity away by not writing things into the 3 boxes which we score on. It is on the form that they get scored on those 3 boxes and not on the rest of the form. But a lot of them still seem to not realise what that means and what sort of things are going to be appropriate. So help them to complete the forms intelligently. There is something you can do in terms of how you select the project title and the project abstract that should appeal to students. And I've got some details on the next slide. Some projects very, very clearly appeal to lots of students, and some projects really just don't appeal to students. And don't write a project that you think would appeal to me. It's got to appeal to a student, and it's got to attract attention to a student. We don't score on the titles, so it's the title and the student abstract has to appeal to them. So support the excellent students. Don't throw a huge amount of effort into students who are not excellent just because you're desperate for students in your lab, because that doesn't help anybody. So these were the top titles from 2018. A number of these were case projects, which seem to have been popular. So the things that are popular: industry-linked projects, clear pathways to therapy, hinted at in the title, antimicrobial resistance, neuroscience, and chemistry. These are the things that people seem to be pretty keen on. So I guess we'll be circulating the slides at the end of this session, so these will be here for you to see. What we need as a control for this is the least popular titles, but I don't know. So we now get a separate tranche of case studentships each year, and these go into the big pool and we advertise at the same time. And the MRC, one of the criteria they judge us on is how many case projects we get, how much industry money we bring into the network. So we're very, very keen to support case projects. So if you have a non-academic partner, this will, I think, help your case. Now, to be an academic partner, you don't need very much financial contribution. If you're a big biotech company or a big pharma company, you only need 1,400 project costs a year and a 2,500 stipend supplement. It's not big money. If you're an SME, you don't even need that at all. There's no cash contribution from an SME. The definition is on the MRC website. But if you can get an SME, you don't have to pay. All they have to do is offer 3 months of the person in their lab and pay for all the costs around that visit. So it's a fairly modest contribution. They have to be UK based, and they have to be not eligible for other Research Council funding. One thing we're really keen on is case conversion during the project. So if you start off in a normal project, you get a partner that you were talking to but wasn't signed up. You sign them up during the project, convert it to a case, because quite often it doesn't require any extra money. And the MRC love this. So if there's a potential for case conversion, highlight that in your application, even if you don't have it signed up at the moment. So what expectations do we have of the students? So I'll go through this fairly quickly, but they've got to engage with the cohort. It is a cohort, the MRC wants a cohort. They've got to engage with that, they've got to come to the training. That's just part of the deal. They really should take opportunities to do stuff outside the lab, and I completely agree with the point that's made before. We get the students to do all these extra things now, we haven't got time for research. But that's the way it is. They need to avail themselves of the opportunities that we make available to them. And they need to really contribute to the wider DCP community as much as they are able. For supervisors, it's great if supervisors can engage with us. We want people to contribute. We have training days, we need people to help on those. We want people to commit to looking after their students and realise that these are a special cohort, that if the MRC take this away, it's a major hit for these 4 universities. We've got to look after these students. So we're not just putting a student in your lab to do your research. They're there to be part of something a little bit bigger than that. So engage with that if you can. Ideally, be open to letting the students out for these other opportunities and trying to find a way they can find the right balance within their training. Again, contribute to the community if you can. We have, because we're a distributed cohort, we have these online sessions where we bring people together. We have a series of things. We have some journal clubs and we have some online teaching events, and we need people to facilitate those. So it would be great if you could contribute to that. And the MRC judge us by the reports that we put in through Research Fiction, the MRC annual reports, and they recently renewed us for a further 2 years because of the quality of the annual report that we put in. And we can't do that unless people tell us what's happening, which papers they're publishing and things like that. So when we ask for that information, it's got to come back within the often very tight time frames the MRC give us. So what you can expect from the MRC, so we pay the research fees, and we, when we asked for this, we asked for 3.5 years, and I absolutely agree 3.5 years is an optimal balance really between getting the work done and getting the students through in a reasonable time frame. So we give you 3.5 years of fees and stipend. We give a research training support grant, and we take a little bit off so that we can book coaches for travel and things like that centrally rather than having to be done for each individual student just for administrative reasons. But you get £4,125 a year. It is the research training costs. It's not to buy a new PCR machine, it's a research training. If the only thing that will allow that student to train is to buy some consumables, then you can use it for consumables, but you have to be prepared to justify that to the MRC. We give some travel costs, we give extra funding for cross-institutional visits and placements. Because we're split across 4 sites, many of these posts are 2 sites studentships, and people that have to travel, we will pay for that centrally, so it doesn't penalise the students for doing so. And we have a reasonably large, flexible fund that we can do with almost what we like, and I'll show you on the next slide what we're supposed to do with this. But there's quite a lot of spare money to help make things work for the students. And there's a number of opportunities that the students have available to them. We have careers advice, we have training, we have Biotech Yes that we support, MRC internships, industry placements, etc., etc. I won't go through the training, but we have a number of training courses, and these are, I think, really excellent, and I've been onto a number of these, and the students love them, and they give them something really, really interesting. We had the Meet the Editors Day recently, where we had a panel of people from a series of journals talking about publishing, and it clearly opened the eyes of the students to the ethical problems of publishing and the difficulties of choosing the right journals and things. So they're really good. So it's flexible funds, so we can pay for that for high-cost external training, placements and internships, and we can use it to transition people to a postdoc position. So if they've been through the process, at the end we'll have some money to allow us to give people maybe another 6 months as a postdoc to allow them to make that transition, to get those papers out and things. And I think that's how we should be spending a lot of that money. Okay, that's all I have to say. Any questions? Thanks. No. Well, there's research training support grants. So, some people have used that for consumables, but there's no consumables money.
In terms of the local triage, do we know what the priorities for this year are likely to be?
Local triage. Yeah. No.
I think in the interest of time, we're going to have to move on.
I'm sorry.
So thank you very much, Steve. And we'll circulate the slides, and if anyone has any questions, Steve's your man. Okay. So we're going to have a bit of a double act now. From myself and Ian Power.